The Śūraṅgama Sutra, translated by the Buddhist Text Translation Society. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Volume 5. Ananda said to the Buddha, Bhagavan, although Tathagata has explained this second absolute, as I now regard someone who wants to untie a knot, if he cannot find its center, he will never get the knot undone. Bhagavan, I and all other hearers in the Great Assembly, who are not beyond study, are the same way. From time without beginning, we have been accompanied in birth and death by ignorance. We have obtained these good roots of erudition, and are said to have left the home life, yet in fact we act like someone with recurrent malaria. I only hope, greatly compassionate one, that you will take pity on us who are sinking and drowning. What are the knots in our body and mind, and how do we untie them? Your explanation will also enable future beings who are in suffering and difficulty to avoid the cycle of rebirth and keep them from falling into the three realms of existence. After saying that, he and everyone in the great assembly made full prostrations. He wept profusely, and with sincere anticipation awaited the unsurpassed instruction of the Buddha, the Tathagata. Then the Bhagavan took pity on Ananda and those in the assembly with something left to study, as well as on beings of the future who have the potential to transcend the world and to develop insight. He rubbed the crown of Ananda's head with his hand that shone with Jambunada purple-golden light. Instantaneously all the Buddha lands of the 10 directions quaked in 6 ways. Tathagatas as numerous as atoms of universe, each dwelling in his respective world, emitted a precious light from the crowns of his head. At one and the same time their light went from their own countries to the Jeta Grove, and anointed the crown of the Tathagata's head. All in the assembly received unprecedented benefits. Then Ananda and everyone in the great assembly heard the Tathagatas as numerous as atoms of universe throughout the 10 directions speak to Ananda with different mouths, but with a single voice. Good indeed, Ananda. You wish to recognize your innate ignorance that causes you to turn on the wheel. The origin of the knot of birth and death is simply your 6 sense organs and nothing else. You also want to understand unsurpassed body, so that you can quickly realize bliss, liberation, tranquility, and wonderful permanence. It too is your 6 sense organs and nothing else. Although Ananda heard those sounds of Dharma, he did not yet understand them. Bowing his head, he said to the Buddha, How can what causes me to revolve in the cycle of birth and death, and what enables me to gain bliss and wonderful eternity, be the 6 sense organs in both cases, and nothing else? The Buddha said to Ananda, The sense organs and the objects are the same source. The bonds and their release are not different things. The nature of the consciousness is empty and false, like flowers in space. Ananda, awareness arises because of defiling objects. Phenomena exist because of the sense organs. The phenomena and the perception are both devoid of their own natures. They support each other like intertwining reeds. Therefore, creating knowledge within enlightened perception is fundamental ignorance. To be devoid of perception within enlightened perception is the non-outflow true purity of nirvana. Why try to put something else in these? Then the Bhagavan, wishing to restate that meaning, spoke verses, saying, In the true nature, conditioned things are empty. Conditioned that arise are like illusions. Things unconditioned neither arise nor cease. Unreal they are, like flowers in space. To speak of the false is to reveal the true, but both the false and the true are false themselves. Since there is neither truth nor untruth, how could there be perceiver and perceived? Between the two, no real nature exists. Thus they are likened to entwining reeds. The knots and their release have a common cause. The sages and ordinary people's path are not two. Regard the nature of the intertwined. They are neither empty nor existent. Dark confusion is simply ignorance. Bringing it to light is liberation. The knots must be untied successively. When the 6 are released, even the one ceases to be. Select an organ preferred for perfect penetration. Enter the flow and realize proper enlightenment. Extremely subtle, the adana consciousness makes patterns of habit that flow on in torrents. Fearing you will confuse the truth with what is not, I rarely tell you of all this. With your own mind you grasp at your own mind. What is not illusory turns into illusion. Do not grasp and nothing will not be illusion. Since even non-illusion does not arise, how can illusory dharmas be established? This is called the wonderful lotus flower. The regal Vajra gem of enlightenment. In this samapati that is likened to illusion, transcend to the level beyond learning. This abhidhamma, incomparable, is the single pathway through nirvana's gate, taken by Bhagavans in all the 10 directions. When Ananda and the Great Assembly heard the unsurpassed compassionate instruction of the Buddha, the Tathagata, this harmonious and brilliant Gaya verse with its clear and penetrating wonderful principles, their hearts and eyes were opened, and they exclaimed that this Dharma was unprecedented. Ananda put his palms together, bowed and said to the Buddha, having heard the Buddha's unrestrained, greatly kind, true and actual expression of Dharma that is pure in nature and wonderfully eternal, I still have not understood the sequence for releasing the knots, so that when the 6 are untied, the one is gone also. I only hope you will be compassionate and once again empathize with this assembly and those of the future by offering us explanation of the Dharma to wash and rinse away our deep-rooted defilements. Then, upon the lion's throne, the Tathagata straightened his nirvana robes, arranged his samgati sash, took hold of the table inlaid with the 7 gems, reached out onto the table, and picked up an exquisitely beautiful cloth given him by a god from the Suyama heaven. Then, as the assembly watched, he tied it into a knot and showed it to Ananda, asking, Ananda and the Great Assembly answered together, "It is called a knot." "What is this called?" Ananda and the Great Assembly answered together, "It is called a knot." Then the Tathagata tied another knot in the beautiful cloth, and asked Ananda again, "What is this called?" Ananda and the Great Assembly once again answered together, "It too is called a knot." He continued in this pattern until he had tied 6 knots in the beautiful cloth. As he made each knot, he held it up to Ananda and asked, "What is this called?" And each time Ananda and the Great Assembly answered the Buddha in the same way, "It is called a knot." The Buddha said to Ananda, "When I first tied the cloth, you called it a knot. Since the beautiful cloth is basically a single strip, how could you give the same answer for the second and third time?" Ananda said to the Buddha, "Bhagavan, this beautiful cloth is just one piece, but the way I understand it, when the Tathagata makes one tie, it is called a knot. If he were to make 100 ties, they would be called 100 knots. And so now that exactly 6 knots, not 5 or 7, have been tied in the cloth, why does the Tathagata only allow me to speak of 1 knot, and not of 2 or 3? The Buddha told Ananda, "You know that this precious cloth is basically 1 strip, but when I made 6 ties in it, you said it had 6 knots.